I'll take you through a day of my eating if that's okay.
Yeah, please.
Like my diet is basically animal-based now, and I have had some experiments recently because I'm trying to always make my diet more varied. But I get up in the morning. I live in Costa Rica. I get up about 5 a.m. I have raw kefir, which is fermented milk from goats, and I have honey. That's a local honey. It's a raw organic honey, and I know the producer, so I know there's no pesticides in the honey. So I have milk and honey, or fermented milk and honey, before I go surf. And then I go surf. And when I get done with surfing, I surf for about 2 to 3 hours every morning. It's like my favorite thing in the world. It's why I live in Costa Rica.
Amazing.
It gets me sunlight. It gets me grounding. It's circadian rhythms. It's everything. I always bring some juice in the car for after I surf. So I'll drink some watermelon juice, or what other kind of juice? Cantaloupe juice, whatever juice I've made, because I want to rehydrate and I want some carbohydrates after I just exerted myself to replenish glycogen stores. Then I drive home and I will make a burger, or I'll make meatballs, or I'll have some ground heart, or I'll eat some steak. But I have some meat, kind of like mid-morning. I'll eat some meat, and I'll eat some organs, whether it's a little bit of fresh or raw liver, and a heart I eat every day. Then I'll have usually a little bit more juice, and I'll make some fresh squeezed orange juice. And then a little bit later in the morning, I'll have more milk and honey. And then in the afternoon, I usually have a snack, which could be some cheese, some raw cheese, some more fruit juice, maybe a mango or some other fruit, maybe a little bit more meat. And then at dinner, I have kind of the same as my breakfast. So again, I'll have a steak, or sometimes I vary the meat, but it's often grass-fed beef. If I can find good quality lamb, I'll vary it with some lamb or some buffalo. Maybe I'll have a steak. Usually I have organs in the morning, so I don't necessarily eat organs at night. And I'll have maybe some fruit juice, or some more fruit, or maybe some more raw milk with honey. So it sounds kind of repetitive, but it works for me. And if you look at the macros, I eat about 300 plus grams of carbohydrates a day, and people's eyes kind of get real wide when I say that. But I just, on my podcast, which is just the Paul Saladino MD podcast, I just shared my blood work. I share it about twice a year. My fasting insulin is 3.6, I think is the last one. My hemoglobin A1C is 5.3. My fasting glucose is 87. So there's no evidence that that's harmful for me at all. My uric acid is 4.3. All of the things that people say will happen if you eat fruit or fructose, none of them happen to me. and none of them happen to humans in general when you do those things. And I think there's a lot of misconception there. Now, to be fair, I'll say that not everyone needs 300 grams of carbohydrates a day. But I do think that for most humans, and there's an asterisk there, for most humans, getting some carbohydrates, probably at least 100 grams a day, will give your body that signal of abundance, which will allow your thyroid to work, your sex hormones will not decline, your electrolytes will be better, and you'll just feel better overall. And that's also reflected at the level of stress hormones, because we will see, and we know this from the literature, cortisol goes up when you restrict carbohydrates too much. Glucagon goes up, catecholamines, epinephrine, norepinephrine, which are also, that's noradrenaline and adrenaline. That's the synonyms of those things. So all your stress hormones go up when you restrict carbohydrates. But look, if you're not exercising 2 to 3 hours a day, you may not need 300 grams of carbohydrates. Some days I eat 400 grams of carbohydrates. But it's just, I think that people don't understand that you can scale it. So I would say for most people, between 100 and 300 based on your activity level. And not everybody wants to do fruit and fruit juice that much. We can talk about other options there. I eat probably about 130 to 150 grams of protein a day. There's pretty good evidence from bodybuilding literature that even if you're a strength athlete that's not using exogenous hormones, 0.8 grams per pound is essentially more than enough protein for humans to build and hold muscle. So beyond 0.8 grams per pound, I'm 165 pounds. I'm not as vertically gifted as you are. I'm about 5'9". I wish I were a little taller, and I weigh 165. I'm about 10.5% body fat. I've shared my DEXA scan in the past. So that's a legit body fat measurement.
That's very lean.
Yeah. And my visceral fat is essentially vanishingly low. Even though I eat tons of fruit. And then I would say for fat, I probably get around 120 to 130 grams of fat per day. When I do it on chronometer, like this, in indexing, thing online. I often have more than 3,000 calories per day, 3,500 some days.
Wow.
So there's a lot of calories. I'm extremely lean, which means that my basal metabolic rate is very high. And to be fair, like I also burn a significant amount of calories surfing for 2 hours.